This woman writes, she's 26, he's 28. My partner of 2 years told me I haven't earned his respect. Guys typically say what they mean, so it's like maybe you haven't, at least in his eyes. And another thing to note on this is that he's really focused on the respect aspect. And so what you'll find a common pattern is respect is oftentimes guys' highest value. And so it's like really their interpretation of love, if you will. Whereas women, it's like love, like the traditional sense of love is basically their highest value. And so it's like you'll sometimes come across like people having trouble with solving problems because she's trying to solve the problem in him in a loving way, and he really needs to feel respected in that moment. And vice versa, he's sometimes trying to solve the problem in her in a respectful way, and showing her respect instead of in a loving way. And so just be very aware of this and know really how to read your partner's highest values. And usually it's with like masculine people, it's the respect thing. With feminine people, it's usually the love thing. Again, I do believe that they are really the same thing. They're just interpreted in a different way. So let's read this one. Longtime lurker, never really posted before. So this is on Reddit. Sorry for any formatting. I'm on mobile. My partner and I have been having issues the last year and are about to start couples counseling to try to talk them out. Issues mostly stem from me thinking his relationship with his mother is extremely unhealthy and toxic. Yeah, well, sometimes that actually is a pretty big problem. Especially if she is a more like domineering mother and he grew up in an environment like that and he never really had a masculine role model. Maybe his father was passive, which is a pretty common thing in today's society to grow up with. And so what that often creates is a guy that's sometimes more in his feminine or more passive or more submissive, because that's really how he was trained from a young age. They obsessively call each other and she lavishes ridiculous gifts on him. Okay, so this might actually be like there's another concept that it's basically the guy never basically leaves his monogamous relationship with his mother. And so we are kind of getting down a path into like the childhood phase. Sometimes it is useful. But that monogamous phase, it's really it's like sometimes when a child doesn't have a masculine role model, he doesn't progress. And so even like some tribal tribes basically know this principle, and what they do is they at the child's young age, he's predominantly raised by his mother. And so what they do when he comes of age is basically the fathers paint like their faces and basically become like very intimidating and sometimes even like scary, and they come and take the children away. I know it seems like an out there concept, but basically the principle and why they're doing this is because it's a rite of passage to move from this basically being in this monogamous relationship with their mother and being in their feminine kind of in that feminine atmosphere, progressing to the more masculine role. And so basically what the mothers do is they actually put on an act that they like cry and make a big deal out of it, and then the fathers who have their faces painted take the boys away, or or just the children away, and now they're raised by it is the boys, but they're raised by the men predominantly, and they grow up in a more masculine environment, and then it's basically a progression like that. And what they've basically believe is that that's a healthy way to really progress. Now that might be to the extreme, and that's why I kind of shared the example, but it is important to just have, if you are like a masculine person, to have like sometimes a role model who's masculine or a friend group that's masculine, that you can basically transition out of this phase. And if you never transition out of this phase, then sometimes you get caught in this basically quote unquote monogamous loving relationship with your mother that you basically never move on from. And sometimes your future partners, your intimate partners, uh, sometimes are neglected basically or put into second position to their mothers, and they basically never kind of separate themselves from their mothers. So it is a real thing for sure. Let's check this out. Lavishly ridiculous gifts on him so he won't talk to his father. That's a weird dynamic, though. His parents have been divorced over 20 years. Yeah. I saw this actually pretty recently. It's like I sell homes. And so it's like this father basically bought his daughter a house, but now like the mother's coming in and they want to buy her another house or some kind of dynamic like that. But it was obvious like competition on who loves who most kind of deal. And it was just like, man, it's a little bit sad. But it's like, well, you're not really in that place to judge. It's just like, well, you just sell the house, whatever, but it does happen. They have a weird codependency on one another that he chalks up to coming from an immigrant Italian New Jersey family. This week I had to travel home to help my elderly father, and he's been giving me a hard time. He calls me very upset because his mother kept trying to contact me after 7 p.m. and I refused to answer because I'm with my own family. Yeah, it seems like he's a little in his feminine energy. His mother even started emailing me when I wouldn't pick up. And she might have some control issues here. Meaning, basically, she might be a more domineering mother, and he, your boyfriend, partner, might be more on his feminine because he's been raised like that. His mother even started emailing me when I wouldn't pick up. She's very controlling. There it is, right there. Yep. And berated him for me not talking to her. I told him he didn't respect my choices and the boundary I set, and he fired back that I haven't earned his respect lately and needed to call his mom back. Yeah, I mean, in relationships, when you are in an intimate relationship, especially when it's serious, she's your number one. It's like, and you have to defend your woman even to your family, even to your mother. And if you don't make her feel that way, she's not going to feel number one, and you absolutely have to make her feel number one. I started crying and hung up. This morning, he called and asked when I would be apologizing for disrespecting her. Yeah, that's bullshit. But he's definitely taking her side instead of yours, and that's going to basically separate the two of you and cause a lot of problems. He did not offer an apology and demanded I apologize to him as well. What the fuck? He was so dead voiced and serious. Yeah, and when you're in that mood and that state, it's almost like a state of anger, and when you're in that angry state, she doesn't feel safe around you. That's really just the vibe you put off. Women are very sensitive to that basically safety factor, and they're basically always a lot of times aware of how they feel in regards to how safe they feel in a particular moment. You'll just notice that really is different between women and men. Women typically feel that more frequently than men do. Is counseling even going to help at this point, or am I the world's biggest moron? Help. Depends what kind of counselor you get. If you get a really good one, then that's great. But sometimes you don't. So get references that are really valid, and you can see the results for yourself on basically before and afters. But sometimes there's no way around just learning it for yourself, because it's like if you don't know these things for yourself, then how are you really going to pick somebody that's a good counselor or just recognize these situations on your own?